Hello and welcome to the 905er podcast. My name's Roland Tanner and Joel's not here. Joel's away taking a break in exotic climes, Nova Scotia, somewhere like that. I don't know. He's not here anyway. And standing in, not a stand-in, that's for sure. But our guest this week, returning guest, someone well known to certainly many of our listeners who live in Burlington and anybody who reads Driving.ca or the Motherlode column in the Spec. Lorraine Sommerfeld, welcome back to the podcast today.
Hi, Roland.
And as I say, but you've been a guest a couple of times before, I think. And you and I have known each other since, I don't know, since I was young, since I was the young guy. We were on a committee and it was like, I wouldn't qualify as the young guy anymore, that's for damn sure.
I'm still older than you, so where's that with me?
Yeah, I mean, God, bloody hell, it's almost 15, 16 years. I don't know, whatever. We were, I was thinking of asking you on again, because it's been a while since we spoke, and to talk about some recent driving stuff and some recent political stuff with Doug Ford and what he's doing. And then it's like, oh, holy hell, Lorraine's published a novel. So I do know, actually, I think way back when we first knew each other, obviously you've been a writer, professional writer for a long time now. But you were thinking about writing a novel, and writing novels is not easy. So A, congratulations, and B, tell us something about it.
Well, it's very far off the beaten path. It's one of those thrillers, escape killers rummaging through cottage country and freaking everybody out. So it's not a Motherlode. There's a lot more swearing in it. And it's got nothing to do with driving, even though everyone has very specific cars. Car casting is fun in a novel, I found out. So anyone that reads it will go, yeah, okay, there's a reason that person's driving that car.
Well, it probably increases your chance of like getting televised by the BBC or someone, because they were like quirky cars are really important in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I wish we had quirkier cars over here. We don't, but
but I mean, so what got you to writing a novel now? I mean, I guess kind of a dumb question, but why now? And
I'd actually finished it. It came out in last July. So welcome aboard, Roland.
Yeah. I'm really on top of the current affairs in our region, as everybody can hear. Yeah.
And I'd had it finished about 6 years before then and just parked it because in Canada, you cannot get a book published. It's basically impossible. And a lot of people will say, well, you must have connections. You've been a writer for 20 years. It means zero. It means absolutely nothing in this country, which I knew, but I wanted to prove to myself that I could finish a book instead of just starting a lot, which I have several half-done ones as well. And when my kid, Christopher, I was up at the cottage with him one time. We have a little crappy cottage and it's pretty isolated on a lake. And I was up there with him on my own and he was 8 months old, maybe not even. Anyway, it was a Friday night. I get up there with my kid and I'm watching the X-Files because that's a really smart thing to do when you're in the middle of the woods on your own in the dark with a baby. And then the news came on and 2 guys had escaped from prison, 2 murderers. I got it in my head that they were escaped from Penetanguishene. I don't know exactly where it was. It could have been, Arkansas, but I watched the news, freaked myself out. I imagine being in a cottage where you can't see any other cottages. We don't have weapons and I'm there with a baby. What do I do if these guys somehow come through the forest to me? And that little nugget sat in my brain for 30 years because I thought you're at your most vulnerable. And I like thinking about, I don't like horror at all, but I do like scary and really actual scary. And that's the thing. People go to cottages on their own all the time. I go up by myself all the time. Now I've got people going, yeah, not doing that anymore. I go, sorry. But I just took that night of fear. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up till the sun came up and it stayed. And then that's what I wound this book from, is a woman. She's way cooler than I am, up at a cottage with her kid. And then there's her characters around her dad and stuff. So yeah, it came from something that actually happened, and then I embroidered a little bit.
And just let's make sure we mention the titles and everything. A Face in the Window, Lorraine Sommerfeld, available in all good bookstores. I'm gonna gonna predict, and Amazon and such.
Yeah, different drummer in Burlington.
Yeah, go buy independent people. Yeah. Support your independent bookstores for sure. Amazon does not need your money. But
you can get it there. You can get there.
But you can get it there too. Yeah.
There's a website, faceinthewindow.com. It'll tell you where you can find it. So.
I mean, it is a really good I mean, I guess the location of a novel is really important. I mean, it's sort of sense of place. And we don't have a huge, maybe I'm wrong here, correct me. I can't think of a huge number of authors who make Canada the or elements of rural Canada kind of central to the writing and kind of make that part of. I mean, do you think that kind of colors the story? I mean, obviously it's rural, cottage country, something that many of us are familiar with, but
Well, I actually I moved it down to northern New York State, which was very calculated because it happened up here to me, and the next one I'm writing is hopefully up here as well.
Mhm.
And actually, a friend of mine who's a novelist, Brad Smith, he uses Southern Ontario as the settings for his
Right.
stuff, and it's fascinating. Like they're great books, and they're set
Mm.
here, and I'm really proud that someone can do it. I thought, okay, I can, and I ended up with a New York publisher, like an American publisher. So I had
Yeah.
to keep those, I had to keep the pathways open.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
setting it here would limit that
Mhm.
for someone who's never been published as a novelist. And I didn't have any power. So I thought, okay, if it's set, and I put it in the Finger Lakes region, which I
Mhm.
love, and I go through
Yeah.
there a lot. And the geography of the lakes was really important to the story because somebody can get across those lakes in a few minutes and it moves the story along following the geography. Up here, if you set off from one shore of Georgian Bay, a few days later you'll find the next shore, but there's no, you know, it's a different kind of vibe. So I did adapt it to a place that I knew and
Mhm. Mhm.
that I really liked, and it was a good benefit to the story to keep because it moves very quickly. The chapters are short chapters, everybody. It's fun. And, so it rockets along, and the geography had a lot to do with that. So,
Well, as I was saying before we started recording, I've ordered a copy. It hasn't. It would have arrived yesterday if I hadn't been out when Amazon tried to deliver it. But it may arrive during the recording. There's excitement for you people. But
well, well, thank you. And if any book clubs do it, I've been going around talking at book clubs. If they contact me and say, "Oh, we selected that book, there's 10 of us," I go, "I'll come talk to you." And they're like, "Really?" I'm going, "Hell yeah, there's 10 of you that read my book." So that's been
that's
fun.
the way to do it. Yeah, that sounds like a really good offer, people. So get on that. I highly recommend that. You already mentioned that you've got plans for more books. I mean, are you already working on it? Have you got it already finished and done and just working,
Oh,
or is
I
it?
wish. No, the other one kind of happened is my kids had moved out and I had some quiet time and I got it into shape and then just pushed it the last 3 months, 6, 7 years ago. The rewriting, writing is rewriting. The rewrites, I was ready to throw things at my publisher's head. And then I found out he was giving me really good direction and ideas. But at the time, I was cranky because I'm used to hitting a deadline, 800 words, 900 words, whatever, bang, 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 like
Mhm.
every day. Totally different kind of writing. I had to retrain myself. I had to learn things. I haven't learned them all yet. One thing I like about fiction, you just make stuff up. Like if you need
This episode is brought to you by JLL. Get an insider view into the world of commercial real estate with JLL's podcast, Trends and Insights, the Future of Commercial Real Estate. Whether you're curious about making cities more sustainable, the evolution of office space, or AI opportunities, this podcast will help keep you a step ahead. Tune in for candid conversations with business leaders about the biggest trends impacting how we live, work, and play. Subscribe to Trends and Insights now at jll.com/podcast.
a reason why someone did that, you just give them a reason. So it's awesome. So that was very freeing and it was good. And I love my day job, but writing about cars, writing about politics, writing about kids and cats, it's very different than making stuff up, and writing 84,000 words instead of 600 is definitely
I mean, as someone who has sometimes thought about, oh, maybe I could be a writer, maybe, I mean, I've written stuff, I've even published stuff, but nothing anybody would ever want to read.
that's not
And
true.
not fiction. I found it incredibly difficult to the self-discipline required to actually, not just write the first couple of pages, but then follow that up and write the next couple of hundred. And then, like you say, I mean, even anybody who's done any writing at all knows that first draft is you're gonna have to read it again and again and again and again. And good
It's
editing is really, but I mean, was it did you find that process fairly easy, or what was it like, oh, I've got to grind through this and make sure I get my 5 pages a day or whatever?
Well, there's lots of, I mean, people will say, oh, you got to read The Artist's Way and journal every day and all that. Well, I tell you, people have been telling me that for 30 years, and that's a bunch of crap. So I think everyone has their own process. Most writers I know of every genre, like some of us are putting it out every day, some are writing novels. We have about 4 good hours a day when we're productive. And if you go past that, your brain just starts springing leaks. And you can edit and rewrite, but to actually work, that's about the most until your brain sprains. And a lot of times, especially if you get a little high or have some wine, you think, oh, this is brilliant. You read it the next day. It's not brilliant. Whether it works. So I'm better writing in the morning. And usually I have to write for my job. So trying to cut time out to do this is sporadic. I wish I could say to you that I spend 2 hours a day on the book and then I do the rest of it. No, I kind of have to wake up and go, I have an idea, or something happens and then it'll move. So I'm not settling in yet to the next one. I have 3 ideas. They're all very different and I like them, and but you have to noodle them around in your brain for months before because I'm learning what most people, I think, would like every author of a book they're writing to say to themselves, which is, what's the point? So every time something happens, I'm asking myself, well, what's the point? And if you read a book and you're going, what was the point of that? The writer failed. So I'm trying to correct myself before I make the mistakes, which means sometimes I don't do anything. I just sit there looking blankly out the window like my cats. But
I was thinking about this recently, that I was thinking of sort of books that I used not to like sort of Dickens and stuff like that, and then about a decade ago, suddenly the penny dropped with what was good about Dickens, and I read all of Dickens in about 6 months, like everything apart from the last couple of books where he starts being so sentimental. It's just you want to boke, but like he's hilarious and he's funny and it's fantastic. But what books, and also actually not so much Dickens, but some of the other people from that era, they spend so long getting into the plot because they didn't. Well, they were often serialized and they're trying to make a big book because get paid more. But also they weren't competing with cell phones and television and movies. And you could, people weren't going to throw the book away. And when the first page didn't grab them, and I kind of feel like now you can't do that. You've got to hit people from page one, and drag them along by any means necessary. I mean, does that sound...
You're absolutely right. No, you're right. And I think it's unfortunate because that prose you're talking about is like the meat of some of the best literature we have. But the whole world has ADHD now. Nobody, including me, I swear, when it comes to being able to stay on a site or something. And there's a joke in the industry, in the thriller industry, now I'm a little tiny part of it, is get a body in the first page, or at least the first chapter, because if you don't, no one's going to bother. And that is like tawdry and awful. I did it. But there is a formula. This is formula writing. There's no two ways about it. I taught myself the formula. I read a whole bunch of really bad books and a handful of good ones and thought, okay, it's a formula. I'm not going to make it more than it is. I threw out big chunks because it's like, well, that's not moving things along fast enough. And my publisher, I said, well, what about this? And he goes, you chose the genre. He goes, I'm just telling you how it works. And I'm going, okay, I understand. So learning curve, really big learning curve. My chapters are short, but I've got people going, oh, we're just going to read one more. And they love that they're short because you have to pull people along and this book has to keep pace. And because it takes place in about 3 days, I think the whole book, it has to move and you can never be sure. You have to be a little bit out of breath about what's going on because the people in the book are out of breath, not sure what's going on. And so I had to master that. And you can't bury the lead. It's obvious writing versus, technical or sometimes, if I write a column and I want to go, however, and then say something amazing a third of the way in, we don't get to do that anymore. You open with the blood. Like you just...
Well, and I have a friend from before I immigrated who's an author in Scotland, and I think one of his books got like long listed for the Booker Prize and stuff. And his books are great. Guy called James Robson. Everybody looking for a good read. I always found his books to be a really good read. But that can be a really rare thing, particularly with the type of book. Like books are ultimately entertainment, like anything else, right? But we pick them up to be entertained, not to think about philosophy or deconstructionism or whatever. It's like entertain me first.
Yep.
Make me think, sure. but I want to be entertained. And there's a whole lot of I felt a long time ago there was a whole load of really self-indulgent stuff out there that sort of wrapped itself in the kind of cloak of serious literature,
Yeah.
as a way of getting away with being really tedious, not having a plot.
And I think I agree with you. Entertain me. And I don't think people should have to apologize
Yeah.
for liking to be entertained. I don't think there's any, like, if there's a series of books you like and they make you happy, and that is great, then that author's done the job that they set out to do. So when I see bestseller lists and someone goes, oh, that's absolute garbage, and sometimes that's me saying that, that's okay though. If that's entertaining people, oh, this world's tough enough. If your escape every night for an hour before you go to sleep is a book that lasts you a week and costs you $25, money well spent, that's great. Or especially hand it around to your friends and stuff like that. So anything that can take your mind out of the garbage we're living through day in and day out. This is your segue, by the way.
I was just thinking that.
So I would never gonna, crap on anybody's association with literature or books, whatever makes you happy and gets you an escape. Oh my God, we all need one. We all need it. So yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading it. I hope it sells a gazillion copies. Just
That's not going to happen.
Well, if this one doesn't sell a gazillion copies, then the following ones
that would be good.
do. And yeah, we'll have you back to talk about the.
Hi, I'm Connie Thiessen, the host of Broadcast Dialogue, the podcast. We focus on Canada and the challenges facing Canadian radio and TV, as well as highlighting those moving the industry forward from podcasting and streaming to new broadcast tech. Check us out at broadcastdialogue.com or your favorite podcast app.
the next one. But yeah, as you mentioned, the crap storm of the world that we are in, and anybody who reads your column in the Spec, Motherlode, will know that, as well as talking about your amazing family, who I'm fortunate enough to know and have met on many occasions, and even to have employed in some cases.
Thank you for
that. You also sometimes talk about politics, and then immediately get a pile of people saying, stick to whatever it is you have to do, stick to cars.
Yeah.
But you talk about politics, and politics obviously overlapping with cars is definitely your wheelhouse. So yeah, what the hell has Doug Ford been up to now?
Oh boy. I tell you, we can split this into Doug Ford and EVs because everything's politicized now. I've never seen cars be so politicized as electric vehicles. It's insanity. But Ford the Star ran a piece a few days ago saying there's 1 million plates that are out of date because when Ford scrapped before the last election, he gave back about, everyone said, you get all this money back from your license plates. And then, of course, people forget you're supposed to go online and renew them. And there's an email that will get sent out if you put yourself on this list. Well, this is asking a lot of people who maybe aren't able to do this or grasp this, or older people or immigrants. I mean, it's crappy. It's a crappy thing to do, a negative billing option until the cops pull you over. And fine, it was garbage. And then the Star says there's 1 million out-of-date plates. You could get $1,000 fine. Okay, that's not true technically, unless you get caught like 50 times. It's $150. And for the first year or two, cops are like, okay, warning. Like, we know this is stupid too. But like everything else Doug Ford does, he just runs out into traffic, and somehow enough cars keep stopping that he hasn't been run over. But you can't plan this way. You can't make legislation this way. And I swear this government is shooting from the hip all the time. And now they're saying they're going to cancel license registrations and everything else. Well, here's the thing. When you go to renew your license plate, and I'm a firm believer, if you're a driver, this is part of the cost of having a car. Taking that money out of the budget is ridiculous. People that drive should be renewing plates. I know there's other places that don't. I don't care. Ontario's the most populous province. It was a lot of money. But by removing that, you're putting the onus back onto people who don't drive, which is nonsense. But what he did at the time, he canceled it and he said, you're getting a refund. You should see my mail from that time. He not only refunded the year they announced it, he made it retroactive to the year before. I knew people got thousands of dollars back if they had multiple cars. There was no boundaries drawn around fleets or anything like that. So people were getting all this money back, but the money, it wasn't tied to anything that we could figure out. I had all these people go, I have 2 cars. This is my birthday. How come I got $600 back? I only paid $240. And I asked the government and they did not respond to me. But the amounts were making no sense. So I had people mailing me telling me how much they got back, how many cars they had when their birthdays were. It made no sense. There was no rhyme or reason, nor was there ever an accounting. He handed back billions of dollars. We don't know to who or why. Nobody ever found out. So everything this government touches, I'm reminded that there's no plan in place. There's rarely a plan. So much tax money. And I know every government wastes money. I understand. But for him to flippantly see this star headline, I guarantee they said, what about that? There's 1 million cars. That's it. We're not doing it anymore. And then they had to scramble to come up with, yeah, we've been planning this all along. Bull. There's no way. So he's governing by headline. When he feels hurt, he invents a new thing. I don't think it's going to be controlled properly. And when you go to renew your plate, if you have outstanding fines, you have to pay them. Great. It also is a check for revind vehicles if something's been stolen. Very important. And I mean, they're telling me, oh no, they'll be checking that automatically. Well, you know where that's going to happen. I'm going to get told I have outstanding fines that I don't have. I'm going to have to sort it out on my dime. You know that. The other thing, though, is Ontario they collect 407 charges when you renew your license. So we're collecting money, government agency, for a privately owned thing. That's the only one. And that's ridiculous. I don't know who cut that deal. I can guess. Dumb idea.
Well, Conservative government, Ernie Eves. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing, which a lot of people don't know, is if you are a deadbeat and you're not paying child support, you cannot renew your license. This was a step in place for custodial parents to have a way to get people who were evading paying child support. It was a way to catch them. Are you telling me this is going to be baked into their automatic system? I don't think it is. So this is way bigger than putting a sticker on your plate or calling me a commie because I think we should pay for them. All right, that was a long rant. I apologize.
This is the podcast for long rants. Let me follow up yours with mine. The cynicism of this government. I mean, they know who their core support is, right? We want the truck drivers. We want the guys who want to be left alone to burn oil and to drive as cheaply as possible to like us. And I guess that's fine. And they're not the only government to try and please their base. But there's a reasons why governments actually have paperwork and red tape. And like you say, why it's not just because they want to be a pain in the ass and register people's cars, but because it's connected to a whole load of other stuff and needing to know how many cars are on the road and tracing criminal practices and goodness knows what else. And yeah, like you say, everything they do, it's just shooting from the hip, and it puts. I mean, yeah, that whole business of the refund was just.
I could not make it make sense. I spent a lot of time with a spreadsheet because I had a lot of input. I get a lot of data from my readers. It's awesome. It made no sense. Nobody could predict how much they would get back. You should have been able to predict exactly how much you'd be getting back. Nobody was. They had no control over that. It was just like diarrhea. They just opened the floodgates for the money.
And the federal government's getting a lot of stick now. I'm not saying necessarily unfairly, but the federal government's getting a lot of stick for how they managed the COVID loans and stuff.
Yeah, about as crappy as the rest of the world did.
Yeah, but this is just like have some checks because you're driving and we like you. And also, this is a conservative government, right? Isn't the conservative principle that you pay for what you do? You pay, don't ask for handouts, you don't ask for subsidies. You know, roads have to be paid for. When we get on a train, we expect to pay to use the train. Yeah. We expect to pay to use the bus. And sure, we know that there are subsidies involved quite often or whatever, but ultimately we're paying a big chunk of the money to go on a train. When I go out in my car, I'm not paying anything for the roads anymore, like even the nominal amount that's in the road tax sort of stuff.
Well, your gas tax is paying for infrastructure. So wait, and EV sales are picking up and will continue to pick up. Wait until they have to put a charge on you for buying a plug-in hybrid or an EV because you're not paying gas taxes and the infrastructure is going to be crushing under the extra weight of this stuff. Every government is going to have to start charging EV owners an annual fee to offset the loss in tax revenue from gas taxes. This is going to get fun because
that's a good point. I mean, they are going to have to, aren't they?
They have to.
If we're basically it looks like the way that things are going to go is basically there'll be a straight transfer from gas cars to electric cars. Price of electric cars will eventually come down and people are going to switch. Well, that's what people feel like is happening now. I don't know if that's fair or accurate or not, but
it's not going to be abrupt. And I talked to a lot of you're going to get it out of my cold dead handers, I call them. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. Take care of your internal combustion engine car. Like, maintain it. Don't drive it as often. There's other ways to, help the planet out. But EV adoption is here. They know when they get to, I think it's 10%, that it'll tip really fast to 25. This happened with cell phones. It happened with microwaves, stuff like that. If they can get an adoption rate, as soon as they hit 10, they know they're off and running, and we're there, and it's going to go. But I'm still telling people, don't run out and buy one. They're too expensive. And if you want one, do some research first. But I mean, EV, I give seminars on this stuff, and it's where we're going eventually. And if you don't want to, you don't have to.
Well,
But
I think, yeah, I don't think, I mean, I bought a car recently, a second-hand car. It's not an EV, but it's cheap and it's old. So I kind of feel that's my environmental contribution is it's small, cheap, and old, and I don't use much gas in it. Would I buy an electric one if I could? Yeah, but I can't. It's no way I'm spending that kind of money right now for a car. I don't drive that often anyway.
I think that's the thing. If we had the structure in place where people could be, if we had good transit, if we had you should be able to walk within your comfortable range. And the conspiracy theories about 15-minute cities. Oh, this cracks me up. This
It's a good
cracks me
one.
up. What does every real estate ad say? Walk to the library, schools, entertainment. They brag about being able to walk to all these amenities. So every real estate ad is pitching a 15-minute city, and people are going, no, it's a controversy. It's like, no, it's really not. It's like been the goal forever is to be able for your kids to walk to school.
Exactly. Only, I mean, and I think that all came from like a single American right-wing nut bar.
Oh, yeah.
Just telling a lie, and it, the lies get around the world before the truth has got its pants on, or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Edmonton's paying for that now. It's
like,
crazy.
I lived in Cambridge, UK version of Cambridge years ago. No, I wasn't at the university. I just working at a shitty job. But back then, I mean, that's 30 years ago. They had the kind of road controls to limit certain types of traffic in certain parts of the town at certain times of day.
Yeah.
Because you don't want a massive truck driving through the middle of a medieval city all the time, because then your medieval city falls down.
Yeah.
That's all that kind of, and the idea that the ambition of, wouldn't it be nice if we could just all walk out of our door and walk into a shop and buy that essential stuff, or you don't have to drive to the doctor, wouldn't that be nice? That somehow that is turned into a bad thing.
Oh, it's adversarial. I don't know why I get so much flack because I give a damn about pedestrians and cyclists. I don't know why that is a bad thing. And I'll always have someone go, no, I have to drive to take my mother to her doctor's appointment, so you can't take my car away from me. I go, wouldn't it be great if your mom could go to her doctor's appointment because the medical building was on her way? So I think there's a lot of forest and trees here going on. And I have a car. I'm a hypocrite. I drive, but I just say to people, drive less if you can, get out and walk, actually meet your neighbors in your community. And where I live, there's no reason for people to do a lot of driving. But I don't know. I just don't know why we've become so polarized that the people who are just trying to make it good for your mom, like for other people, how is that a negative thing? Surely there's a middle ground here. I'm not trying to take your keys.
Whereas everything becomes a religious war. And you know what? I think, to be honest, my Twitter feed is full of a whole load of cycling activists, and they can be real hard asses sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
It's as if, if you drive a car, you're a massive asshole. And
yes.
It's like, no, that's not, no one's ever said that. We don't.
Well, there's commenters on the other side saying exactly that. So
yeah, but
I get where the animosity comes from, but it's not going to help anybody.
Yeah, it gets you absolutely nowhere. Then you end up, you've got two communities who are no longer speaking to each other, who think that the other side is idiots.
Yeah. Welcome to the world.
Well, that's it. This is the current world, and it's really depressing. I mean, Doug Ford's basically bribing his base, right? This is what this is all about.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, do you think he's going to get away with it?
I don't know. When I see how many hundreds of ERs have shut down in remote parts of this province, and I know people in those places, those are lifelines in those communities. And to have a government that you voted for turn around and remove those lifelines from you, taking away medical coverage, which means you die. So your life, because you live in Timmins or wherever, doesn't matter as much if you're not in Toronto. So watching him bleed and kill the very people who elected him, I am at a loss now as to know why. I know the people that didn't vote for him would never vote for him, but watching people who will go back to that same poisoned well after he has diminished their lives, taken their lives in some cases, but absolutely have no respect for those lives. Why? Why would you? I watch these MPPs. I've never seen a more useless crew in my life. They don't exist. You never see them until they insert themselves into some local municipal matter out of the blue. No names. Why did you show up this evening for this? This doesn't make any sense. Where are you with the stuff that matters? So they're hiding behind the guy. And I don't know why, because can they really all be that stupid? Because he is an unserious man. He is an unserious man in a position he shouldn't be in. And I
really feel, and I really wish, I know it's considered basically kind of, political death, but he was elected on the basis that dumb people are better than smart people. That being dumb is an admirable quality. Like, hi, I'm the biggest, dumbest asshole in the room. My brother was a bigger, dumber asshole, but he's dead. So let's vote for me. Can we get away from that, please? Can we maybe get back to the idea that smart people have something to fucking contribute? I'm not saying that the man in the street doesn't have all kinds of things to contribute. But actually, education, research, thinking carefully about taking action before you take an action is, kind of good, right?
Well, I think it would be really nice if we first admitted that this conservative party in this current incarnation is not the one I was raised with. I was raised a conservative. My dad's a prairie farm boy. Everyone's heard the story. He would be rolling right now because this is not those people. This is this Reform Party, which is put on this planet to make money for a very few people and be damned everybody else. And that's always the goal, and it has been for a few decades now. So why people are still just, I swear, they just see blue and put a check mark. They're not looking for their own best interests anymore. And those best interests, they're not being well defined by the Liberals or the NDP as well. I'm looking at a mass of political parties that are all trying to dance with everyone at the same time. You can't do that. I miss the days of Joe Clark was boring, but he was straight up. And Martin, like, these are people that would tell you the truth. And you got the idea they had a modicum of smarts, like they weren't stupid. And then we get ushered in to the Sarah Palin generation of Tea Party garbage, where the dumbest, noisiest one wins because they think they're putting their thumb in your eye. And that's what this feels like. People are voting as long as they can stick it to somebody else. It's like, no, why aren't we voting for something? Why? But I look at people who go into politics and I'm like, and I know you ran, and I apologize. I think you did for reasons. But I look at the people that in the US especially, but especially here, half the people down here in Queen's Park, they can't get a job anywhere else. They're unhireable. I know that. I know some. They can't.
It's true. I think you will find, and maybe I'm just flattering myself here, that because it might sound like it applies to me. There are good people who run, but they run once, and if they don't win the first time, they're like, oh, screw it. And it's like, what did I learn from running for politics? I learned that I didn't want to be a politician.
Yeah, you saw how the
sausage
got made.
This sucks.
No,
if I win, I have to go and work in Burlington City Hall. Yeah. No thanks. And if I ran provincially, I'd get to sit in Queen's Park and be absolutely ineffectual and pointless as a backbencher.
Well, you have to start conniving and compromising and selling out and lying and bribing to get into a position of power. And I'm sure this isn't just the same in Canada. This is everywhere. But we have some really shifty people with their hands on the controls. And the thing with Ford is his crew's so stupid they showed us. And I'm flabbergasted that they weren't better at covering their asses. I mean, it's crazy to me.
So, I used to feel that most political parties were, it's like, yeah, you can accuse them of being incompetent all day, every day, but they were pretty clean by and large. Like, you don't, if you go through all the people who used to be MPPs 5, 10, 15 years ago, you're not going to find a bunch of millionaires who got rich off backroom deals.
Until now.
But yeah, that could be happening now.
Yeah.
But B, that all during that time, the Conservatives were saying, these guys are crooks, these guys are crooks, these guys are ripping you off, these guys are stealing from you.
Yeah.
And they actually believed that. They really believed that the Liberals are crooks or the NDP are crooks or whatever. So when they get in, it's like, well, they were crooks. We can be crooks too. The whole thing gets dragged down because we're constantly telling each other that the system is corrupt and ruined and terrible. Well, self-fulfilling prophecy. It's happening. You know?
And my favorite part of this is when they go, "Where's the investigative journalist on this?" And I'm going, "You didn't want to pay them anymore. They've all been fired."
Oh.
And I beg people every time I do a book reading, please pay for one source of information that you have. The Narwhal is amazing. Press Progress is amazing. Observer is amazing. But I don't care. Spec, whatever. Please pay for one thing. Just because it flies through the air doesn't mean it's free. And the same people who are screaming, "Where's the investigative journalists?" It's like they're at home, with their side hustle selling crap on Etsy because nobody wants to pay for anything until it gets scary. Well, guess what? We're so far past scary, it's in the rearview mirror. We need investigative journalists, not opinion writers. I'm an opinion writer. We don't need more of me. I get it. We don't even need me.
You don't need more opinionated podcasters either.
Yeah. Well,
you really don't.
I absolutely recognize the difference. And guess what? We do know the difference. There's a difference. But if you want these people who can keep the light and the antiseptic coming into these crooked people, please pay for one source, just one. You can get stuff for like a few bucks a month, $5. And if everyone just paid for one and hack your way into the other ones or trade them around, I don't care. But please get back in the practice of paying for one source of information at least. You used to give the kid at the door with the clicker and the hardboard. My parents have $65 a week for the spec. And I thought that was the coolest job in the world. I couldn't wait. Oh, that was amazing. But yeah, before you start whining, look in your own yard and go, wait, I rip everything off and ask, how do I hack past a paywall? If you've ever asked someone to hack past a paywall, go and sit in the corner and don't talk to me anymore. No.
Well, that's a good way to end it. Let's call it a day there, and yes, go out and support a journalist in whatever way possible. And
the Narwhal got the green belt back. That little magazine. Yeah. Those kids are doing such. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely right. And it certainly wasn't the damn opposition parties. No. But yeah, it showed what journalism can do. Yeah. So it's really important, and it's also important that money comes from us and not from the government. There's not all in subsidies, which tend not to get to the journalists anyway. But anyway, thank you, Lorraine. Really appreciate it. We'll speak again. Hope the book goes well, and let us know when the next one comes out.
I'll let you read this one first. Thanks, Roland.
Yes.
That's it for this episode of the 905er. Thank you for listening. As always, you can send us your feedback, thoughts, and concerns or ideas for future episodes to our email, info@905er.ca. We love to hear from you. You can help us keep the 905er going by financially supporting us through Patreon as well as PayPal. Visit us at 905er.ca and click on the support tab. As well, links are in the show notes for your convenience. Lastly, you can find us on social media. Search for _905er on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So long for now. See you next time.
Hi, this is Candace Sampson, the voice behind What She Said. My show is your destination for stories that not only entertain, but also educate and empower. Every week, I spotlight strong female voices from across Canada, women who are changing the narrative and driving change. Don't miss out on these inspiring episodes. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon Music, or head over to whatshesaidtalk.com.
What She Said can also be heard on blasttheradio.com, Mondays at 5 p.m. and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. That's blasttheradio.com.
It's time to dive into the stories that truly matter.